Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamnatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Today's verse is Canto 3, Chapter 23, Text 6. Karadama uvacha tushtoham adya tava manavi manadyaha tushtoham adya tava manavi manavdyaya tushtoham adya tava manavi manadhyaya shushushaya paramaya paraya chabhaktya shushushaya paramaya paraya chabhaktya Yodehinam ayang atiba surit sadeho Yodehinam ayam atiba surit sadeho Navekshita samuchita kshapitum madarte. Navekshitak samuchitak shapitum madarte. Karadama uvacha. Tushtoham adyatava manavimanadaya. Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya. Yodehi namayamati vasukritsa deho. Yodehi namayamati vasukritsa deho. Navekshitak samuchitak shapitum madarte. Karadama vacha. Tushtoham adyatava manavimanadaya. Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya. Yode namayamati vasuritsa deho. Navekshita samuchita kshapitum madarte. Karalamuvacha. Tushtoham adyatava manavimanadaya. Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya. Yodehi namayamati vasuritsa deho. Navekshita samuchita kshapitum madarte. Karalamuvacha. Tushtohang adya tabamana vimanoam Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya. Yodehi namayamati vasuritsa deho. Navekshitak samuchitak shapitum madarte. Kardamu vacha. Tushtoham adyatava manavimanadaya. Shushushaya paramaya paraya cha bhaktya. Yodehi namayamati vasuritsa deho. Navekshita samuchita kshapitum madarte. Kardama uvacha. The great sage Kardama said, Tushta, pleased, aham, I am, adya, today, tava, with you, Manavi, O daughter of Manu, Manadaya, who are respectful, Shushushaya, by the service, Paramaya, most excellent, Puraya, highest, Cha, and Bhaktya, by devotion, Yak, that which, Dehinam, to the embodied, Ayam, this, Ativa, extremely, Suhrit, dear, Saha, that, Dehina, body, not, avekshita, taken care of, samuchita, properly, kshapitum, to expend, madarte, on my account. Gardama Muni said, translation and purport by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Gardama Muni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhu Manu, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. This is a short purport. It is indicated here that one's body is very dear, yet Devahuti was so faithful to her husband that not only did she serve him with great devotion, service, and respect, but she did not even care for her own health. That is called selfless service. It appears that Devahuti had no sense pleasure, even with her husband. Otherwise, she would not have deteriorated in health. Acting to facilitate Kardama Muni's engagement in spiritual elevation, she continually assisted him, not caring for bodily comfort. It is the duty of a faithful and chaste wife to help her husband in every respect, especially when the husband is engaged in Krishna consciousness. In this case, the husband also amply rewarded the wife. This is not to be expected by a woman who is the wife of an ordinary person. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Nityang Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutali Sayang Rupakadama Hyang Dadati Sabadantikam. So in this verse, just to look at the words, Manavi is the daughter of Manu. Manavi is patronymic, meaning like Vasudev, Vasudev. Vasudev is the son of Vasudev. So Manavi is the daughter of Manu. And Manadaya, that Mana, Amanina Manadena. In the Shikshastik, we learn Amanina means without respect, or Manadena, giving respect. So Manadaya, so those who are respectful. Shushushaya, we know this word. Shushushaya Shraddhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi. Shushushaya, by the service. Puramaya, most excellent. Puraya, highest. Bhaktya, Bhaktya ma vijanati, or Kichit kilya bhaktya vasudeva parayana. Bhaktya means by bhakti. So this is in Sanskrit, this is the third case. Tritiya vibhakti. Bhaktya, by bhakti, instrumental case. So all these, Shushushaya, Paramaya, Paraya, Bhaktya, all are in the instrumental case, the third case. Jo, that which, Dehinam means of the Dehin, means Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumarang yovanang jara. Dehinam, Dehino, Asmin. Dehino is Dehinaha, means of the embodied. So Dehin. Deha means body, and Dehin means the one who inhabits the body. So Dehinaha, Dehino, here it says Dehinam, of those who inhabit the body, Ayam, this body, Ativa, extremely, ati, extremely suhrit, extremely dear. Hrit means heart, suhrit means dear. So dear to the heart. Sadeho, deha means body. So that body for the dehis, for the embodied, is extremely suhrit, dear. Na avekshita samuchita. So, but na, you didn't take care properly of this deha. Kshapitum means to expend or to be austere, to give. So she expended her own body. Prabhupada translates, you have neglected your own body, to use it on madarte. Artha means, often translated as wealth, artha, but it means for the purpose of mud. Mud means me. So Duryodhana in the Bhagavad Gita says, madarte tyakta jivata. Madarte means that for me, they're going to tyakta, they're going to give up jivita, their life. Madarte tyakta jivita. So he's bragging that all of his warriors, Duryodhana is saying these words, that all these warriors are ready to give up their life. So, if we know these verses, Shushushriya Shodadhanasya, Marate Tyakta Jivata, if we know Amanina Manadena, then we know Manadaya. If we know Bhaktya, Vasudeva, Kichit Kilya Bhaktya, Vasudeva Parayana, or Bhaktya Mam Vijanati, Dehinam, Dehinos Minyatade. So we already have the vocabulary here. It's good. It's a good idea to look at these verses. Prabhupada, that's why he gave us the Sanskrit, the English synonyms, and then the translations, so that we can study like this. I noticed that, of course, I cheated a little bit because I took some Sanskrit so that I could learn these things. But I noticed as I was taking Sanskrit, Dayànanda Maharaj, he was so adept that he could just study these verses and the transliteration and the translation, and he could figure out what was going on. So this is the way that Prabhupada would like us to study, if possible. So it's indicated here that one's body is very dear. And from the purport, we can also go back to the verse. So the body is very dear. It's the deha, the body, is surit. Yet Devaki was so faithful to her husband that not only did she serve him with great devotion, service, and respect, but she did not care for her own health. Now there's one devotee, friend of mine, who argues that health is the most important. And he quotes a letter that Prabhupada wrote to one of his disciples saying that your health is most important. But I was thinking that I don't know if that's really true, that health is the most important. Now here, Prabhupada clearly states that selfless service is the most important. There's a verse, what is that? Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavirtam. How's it go? Anakulyena Krishnanushilam Bhakti Ruttama. So this kind of absorption in Krishna is required, that savai punkso parodharma yuto bhakti rutokshade. Ahaitiki apratiyata. So ahaitiki, without any cause, being completely selfless. And that verse also that I quote, Kechit Kevalya Bhaktya, Vasudeva Parayana. Parayana means also completely absorbed in service. Mat Parayana in the Bhagavad Gita, it says also. So being completely absorbed. So it appears that she was like this. She was completely absorbed in her service. So much so, and Prabhupada said, this is called selfless service. So apratihata, she has no personal motivation. Prahlad Maharaj also talks about this, that I forget the word, vanijya or vanik, something like that, that it's like a merchant. So devotional service, bhakti, should not be performed like a merchant, that meaning that it's not a business. We're not looking for profit or anything. So selfless service. So this is the highest. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, if you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Leela, 20th chapter on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's purport to his Shikshastik, you can see beautiful progression starting from Cheto Darpan Marjanam up to the final verse, Asli Shiva Padaratang. So I think it's the 6th verse, Mahaprabhu, the purport of the verse is that Mahaprabhu is praying to Krishna for love. So he wants a payment of love. It's a very interesting concept that it's such a high level. We have no concept of such a high level, but just at least theoretically, we can understand it. Here Mahaprabhu is asking for a payment of love of Krishna. And then the final verse, Asli Shiva Padaratang Vinashtumang, that Krishna is Lampato, he's a Dibachi, or a heartbreaker. He's even though he's this Lampato, he's this heartbreaker, or Dibachi, that sometimes he ignores Srimati Radharani. Because the last verse, Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radharani. So even though he ignores her sometimes, and he plays with the other gopis, still, she says, still, I'm your service, whatever you do. So this is the final selfless. This is in the commentary after the verse. This is called Vishuddha Bhakti, Vishuddha Prema, completely pure prema, completely devoid of any selfish interest. And just imagine how high this kind of selflessness is, that it goes beyond even asking for love. It's incomprehensible. How can we understand such a thing? That we want to go even beyond this prema, love, and then it becomes Vishuddha Prema, completely pure prema. Amazing concept. That the highest is selflessness, pure selflessness. And the lowest is pure selfishness. Tama, this tamaguna, is pure selfishness. So we can experience that, hopefully not ourselves, but we could see it in the material world. So many people are absorbed in pure selfishness. And this is a good city to walk around and see that firsthand. New York, Mumbai, other cities. I haven't been to Tokyo or to Beijing, but I can imagine that these highly materialistic cities are just, I don't want to say wonderful examples, but horrible examples of this tamaguna, completely, almost pure selfishness. Prabhupada, there's a saying that somebody who enjoys, there are two people who enjoy in life. There's the fool and the saint. Everyone in between is struggling one way or the other. So this selfish tama enjoyment, it's almost impossible. If we meet somebody like this, it's almost impossible to explain to them that they are not really enjoying. No, I'm enjoying. This is the best. I'm at the pinnacle of enjoyment. So whereas people who are in between, they may be a little more receptive to the concept that their enjoyment is not, there's something wrong with it. It's mixed with suffering. But the saintly people, as they approach selflessness, it's an interesting idea that because we're accustomed to thinking that enjoyment, it's intuitive that we think that enjoyment is something selfish. I mean, we may not think that in words in our mind, but it's a selfish thing, material enjoyment or sensual enjoyment, enjoying the senses. It's something that we do ourselves. It's something, if we enjoy with someone else, we're very concerned with how we feel, how it makes us feel, and even health. This going back to the purport where Devahuti was neglecting her health. People in modern culture are so concerned about their health. If you read any article in the newspaper, they're recommending something. They say, oh, well, you should only drink 1 cup of coffee instead of 3 because it's better for your health. Or you should take 2 glasses of wine instead of 1 because it's better for your health. You should work out half an hour a day or instead because so many things are based on health. It's just, if it's not about politics, it's about health or scandal, some scandal somebody had. But health is everywhere. It's such an obsession. So, and medicine is developed, and originally the churches, they used to take responsibility. This Christian church, they were very absorbed in medicine because Christ was healing people. So churches like to proselytize through establishing hospitals, Christian churches. But modern medicine has become so distant from that. In the old days, the doctors used to tell the patients that, I'm going to give you this medicine, but it's up to God if you're going to be healed. So there was some piety in the medical field. But now, no. People are just interested in their body, just like here in this verse. That for the Dehina, for these embodied people, that the Deha is suhrit, is so dear. The body is so dear. And health, this health obsession. And this is the materialistic country where health is such. And then people say, oh, it's such a controversy as to whether the government should pay for everyone's health care. Well, then they say, oh, it's a right. We should have health care. We must. It's a right. It's our right. But then, do we dare say that to the material? Are we going to say to Yamaraj or to those who enforce our karma or to the material nature? No, material nature, please, don't give me this virus. It's my right to be healthy. We have no such right. We are subject to nature. We're subject to the higher powers. We have no rights. We have no right to live even. They say that in the Declaration of Independence, that we have these inalienable rights, or unalienable rights, something like that. And life, we have the right to life. We'll tell that to Yamaraj. Who's this Declaration of Independence for? Yamaraj. Yamaraj, I have the right to life. Nature takes everyone's life, everyone. So these are the vain goals of, and they're in vain. They're vain and in vain. They're full of false ego, suhrit deho, thinking their body is so dear, and just focusing completely on the wrong thing, the body. So here Devahuti was focused on the right thing, service to the Supreme through her husband. Her husband was serving Krishna. In the next verse, I don't want to cheat here, but in the next verse, he says, Vidyatma Yoga Vijita, Bhagavat Prasada. So he was engaged in Krishna consciousness, and he received the blessings of Bhagavat Prasad. He was getting the mercy of Krishna. But where was I looking for? It says that he was engaged in a life of austerity, meditation, and Krishna consciousness. So the great personalities are also engaged in austerity. It didn't say that he was enjoying, that is, that Devahuti was neglecting her body and that he was enjoying like anything. No, he was engaged in austerity for the Supreme Lord. This is the practice of devotees. I'm so impressed. Adikarta, I'm trying to keep up with you because I think of you as more renounced than me, So, yeah, I think this is a way of the devotees. They look at each other, they see, oh, this devotee is, I feel embarrassed, this devotee is more renounced, I should improve. So that's the devotee, and she's serving her husband, but then Prabhupada explains that we don't get that. This is not to be expected by a woman who's the wife of an ordinary person. So what's the use of that? Here we're serving a guru. We're all serving someone. We're serving Maya or we're serving Krishna. So we're all serving. Definitely, people are serving Maya. Most people in this world are serving Maya. We don't think like that. Also in that the purport to Shikshastak, there's a discussion about service to Maya. That this word dasa and dasi, it means menial servant. Sometimes people criticize that the Bengalis, there's this religion started by Mahaprabhu, and all these people call themselves dasa. Dasa is really a menial service, and they criticize, all these people have taken this low position. This is not good. They're not assertive enough. So it really means menial servant. Even it has the implication of being slave, that we're a slave to Krishna. Now, I looked up online, and there are modern songs where people, the singer, or whoever composed the song, says, I'm a slave to you. In love, I love for you, I'm a slave to you. So modern singers can express this emotion in this time of political correctness, but we cannot say that we're slaves in our relation to the Supreme. There's such hypocrisy that people are, or that we want to take a humble position and become a menial servant of the Supreme Lord. Or there's famous stories like Romeo and Juliet that ends in tragic death. And people think this is, it's so poignant that they became so absorbed in their love for each other. But to talk about Krishna Parayana, to talk about absorbed in love for Krishna, this is, people question this. So here, Devahuti was absorbed in service. So service, if you think about it, service is the highest love. Look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Aslishya va padaratang, that he went beyond love. He was asking for love as a payment. Then he went beyond that, Vishuddha prema, that completely selfless love. So this selfless service is the highest kind of love, or even higher than love. It's pure love, selfless service. So on the one end, there's selfish, pure selfishness. On the other end, selfless service. Because how can you have love without service? Someone falls in love in the world, in the material world. They say, I love you. But it's just a selfish feeling. They're feeling, I feel good. I'm around you, I feel good. So I feel good. This is the kind of love that's in the material world. Or lust, same. So this is selfish love. But selfless love means that the husband and wife they serve each other, they serve the family. The woman has a baby, and she serves the child selflessly because she's not getting anything from the child. She's just, she has to serve this helpless infant. And all she's getting is she has to clean up after the baby and feed the baby. The baby is screaming all night, keeping her awake. So there's so many sacrifices that she has to go through. And couples always have trouble getting along. Woman has to live with the man has to live with the woman. It's incompatible, two different kinds of people, two different species, men and women. So living together, going through troubles, but sacrificing, self-sacrifice in a good marriage. So there's this sacrifice in order to get along. Selfless, being more selfless. And then the family, learning how to become more selfless. The children are causing trouble. The children are selfish, so they're causing trouble. And then adolescents, still selfish, so hardly even learning how to become good, how to serve, especially in the West. I was listening to a lecture yesterday by Radhe Shyam. He was talking about the children. They become good children and they follow their parents. I was saying, where does that happen in America? So yes, the parents have to become selfless and to serve their family as best they can. But the highest love, the pure selfless love is spiritual, is not expecting, because even the families, they expect to, it's selfish. There's an expectation of some kind of reward from the husband and wife, expect to be rewarded for their service to each other, from the family, and so forth. But here Devahuti was neglecting her body for this in her service. It's such an exalted position. So it's praiseworthy. And for the first 5 verses, this is the 6th verse, for the first 5 verses, Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya, was talking to Vidura, another great sage. We know Vidura. He's the brother of Dhritarashtra, Pandu. So Vidura is such an exalted person. And Maitreya, he's sitting at the feet of Maitreya. Maitreya is just talking about Devahuti. 5 verses of praise for Devahuti, that she was serving so nicely. Selfless service. But he was qualified to receive that service, that Kardama Muni. So then, not, as Prabhupada said, not an ordinary person. An ordinary person is not qualified to receive such service. So we also are serving. I'll just close by saying that we also are serving our gurus. We serve here in the temple president, the temple authorities. We're serving because these people are qualified. They're also serving. We're serving them, and they're serving the higher, on up, through the parampara. So that's our system to serve. We don't know God directly, so we serve His servants. The servant of the servant of the servant. That's our practice. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Any questions? It says right here on this, start kirtan and lecture by 8, end lecture by 8:50. So it's now 8:46. Question and answer between 8:50 and 9. Finish promptly by 9. That's the instruction here. So I'm trying to follow. I'm serving. It's not completely selfish. The selfless. What? What?
I'm still wondering who it was that gave them.
Yeah.
It seems like a Hare Krishna? Yeah, it seems like a very relevant topic because in the history of ISKCON, there are people who sacrificed a whole lot, and different things happen. Sometimes they burned out and left the society, and sometimes they lost their health, and now they distributed books, and now they're crippled and they can't walk because of these heavy book bags and different things. And it reminded me of one interesting story. During the time I lived in Alachua, 3 devotees committed suicide. So I thought, I grew up in a certain church and nobody committed suicide so I thought that's sort of odd. And this Radhanath Swami had this amazing counselor system in Chaupati, and I suggested to the leaders of Alachua, maybe we could introduce something like that. So I arranged this meeting between the Radhanath Swami and the leaders of Alachua, and he said that he was in New Vrindavan, and there everyone was pushed to sacrifice everything for that project. And a lot of people felt bad and got burned out and left. So in Chaupati, he decided to make sure that all the devotees' needs were satisfied, and the devotees felt so well taken care of that they would voluntarily help the project. And that was his realization. So that was interesting and relevant, so I share that. And you're talking about this spirit of service that isn't there, especially in children or adolescents, and it's not taught. I had an interesting experience with how that's so much a part of the traditional Indian culture. I couldn't get into England one time because I didn't have a ticket or enough money to buy one, so they wouldn't let me in. And I'm so used to staying in temples or with devotees, I never pay for accommodation, so I was like stuck, So there's this service called couch surfing. You can just stay at someone's house if you sign up for it. So I signed up for it, and I checked out the different profiles, and there was this Indian guy who mentioned Krishna in his profile, so I contacted him, and so I stayed at his place, and he said he was an Indian student at the university, and he got an apartment near the train station so he would be able to take care of guests. And that's like something that no American student would ever think of, But because that's part of this Vedic culture where selflessness is promoted, that guy had that mentality. So those are a few things.
One thing, I think it's excellent. I just wanted to comment on your first point. I think it's essential to have these sort of a network of care for devotees and not allow devotees to slip through our fingers. A couple of things, actually, I'll say just very quickly. In India, I noticed that there's kind of a custom, I don't know how widespread this is, but there's a custom that when somebody's a servant in the house, the family generally kind of treats them poorly. not too poorly, but they boss this person around more than we're used to seeing in the West, if somebody's an employee. But so these people are definitely serving the family, and then they don't get paid very well. But when they leave, the family just embraces them, they're very nice to them, and they give them money, and there's some logic to this. Sometimes it's kind of a selfish logic, or probably often it is. But I was thinking we should do that in ISKCON, if somebody leaves. And then I was talking about it to some devotees, and they say, yeah, in some places they do that. They give, if a devotee has been serving for so many years, then they give them some facility when they leave, they get married or something like that, if they've been serving selflessly in the temple. So, of course, in those sort of rough and rugged early days, we couldn't provide that kind of facility. But yes, I agree with you 100%. We need to have those safety nets for devotees. However, there's another, I have this sort of concept. It's not based on any shastra. It's sort of my own concoction, but I like to share it with other devotees. Some devotees don't like it, especially ones who are very critical. But I believe that Prabhupada engaged us in the yajna, the Sankirtan yajna. So yajna is a fire. So we were thrown into the fire of Sankirtan. And some devotees were especially absorbed, or they were somehow engaged in such a way that it was a tremendous sacrifice. The devotees made tremendous sacrifices. Many did and still do. So being thrown into the fire, sometimes you get burnt. But just imagine the benefit of we know that being offered in the sacrifice, like in the old ancient Vedic times, the animals were offered in the sacrifice, and the priests were able to give the animal a higher birth. So we don't do this now. There's no animals offered. because there are no priests that can give this higher birth. But we animals were offered in the sacrifice of Sankirtan, and we didn't lose our lives, but maybe we had our feelings hurt, or maybe we experienced some emotional impact. But we didn't even lose, in general, we didn't lose any limbs. Of course, Bhakti Marg Swami, what's his name? Bhakti Raghava. Bhakti Raghava. He lost a limb, but in general, we don't lose any limbs. So, not like war, where people have to sacrifice. In war, they have to lose their lives, and they have to lose limbs, and they make a tremendous sacrifice going to war. But we waged war on Maya, and yes, we had some injuries along the way, but it's to be expected when we get offered. But unlike those guys who went to war and lost their lives, it's a little doubtful in this age of Kali whether or not they were promoted, or at least promoted very high. But when devotees lose their emotional sort of equanimity or have some problem, just imagine the amount of benefit these devotees get for having distributed Prabhupada's books in the cold winter in some parking lot, approaching the housewives as they come to their cars, and day after day having to meet some quota, or all the sacrifices that devotees made. This is eternal benefit. So anyway, that's my interpretation. Being offered in the fire of Sankirtan, like a banana getting burnt. And we still, after that long thing, we still have 4 minutes. According to the paper, I guess we don't need to go all the way up to 9 o'clock.
Well, I'd say that, the material world is a very difficult place, even if you're a devotee. And we see so many casualties in the material. Lots of people commit suicide in material life. Lots of people have health problems.
Is this on?
Huh?
Is that on?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so, devotees, generally, they have great lives. But it will never be ideal until we do what Prabhupada wanted, which is to create farm communities. Because we need to have Varnashram, was what Prabhupada wanted, which means not only going back to a more natural, simple way of life, but having extended families whereby, old people are taken care of by the children, which is the way Varnashram works, There's all kinds of relatives around to make sure children don't get abused. And people are generally happier because they live closer to nature. We're living in a hellish city, very difficult. So I think that a lot of the problems that devotees have had and society has would be solved if we went back to the more natural village lifestyle, which is the way people lived before the Industrial Revolution. That's what Prabhupada wanted. And I see that, in myself. I live in the country. It's much more, it's kind of boring. But at the same time, if you had communities of devotees where they're not working like slaves like they did in New Vrindavan, where a lot of them got burnt out there. But, if it's done very carefully And people, they drink proper water, like me. I have a nice well. I drink proper water. I never drink bottled water. You have cows. You get proper cow's milk. It's just the way you're supposed to live. So I think that devotees don't really want to live on a farm. They don't want to go back to that kind of lifestyle. But somehow or other, it's really what Prabhupada wanted. And until we do that, I think there'll be continued problems, honestly. But anyway, that's my opinion.
I agree. I think Adikarta's a perfect example of somebody who living on the farm and then coming to the city to distribute books. I think that sort of dual life is very exemplary.
Well, even my grandchildren, because I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging, because I'm not really. I'm just saying, how nice it is for my grandchildren, because they live right there. They're with the cows, like little kids. They're pulling the little baby calf into the stall, and then they're trying to help, and they're getting proper cow's milk to drink, and then, they're getting oranges from the trees that we have, or mulberries, or figs, or whatever, and, their grandmother's there. The school's just around the corner. It's kind of ideal, But obviously, I think that's how ISKCON should be showing people how to live. We're not really showing people how to live properly, because, it's just hard for modern people to live on a farm. But, I go out preaching and I tell people that this society is rotten, but, as far as creating what Prabhupada wanted, it's very difficult. But, I go to Hungary. There's a beautiful farm in Hungary. Shiva Ramaswamy has got an amazing place. But still, people find it hard to live there. But it's still a wonderful place. I recommend everybody to visit there. It's a really, like Indrajumna Swami said, it was heaven on earth. It's a pretty amazing place. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm wondering about a lot, because a lot of us here would love to live on such a farm, to have kind of that lifestyle, but we're feeling that we're making faster spiritual progress by putting ourselves in this hellish condition of life for Prabhupada's service. That's kind of the mood here, is we're thinking, well, so many things we have to sacrifice, but, yeah, I'm just wondering, is it possible, to make the same kind of progress in the Kali Yuga, in this age where our minds need to be so engaged, in devotional service? How is it that living on a farm you can engage yourself, not to get caught in sattva guna, I mean, I'm not saying that's what happens, but I'm wondering how is it you avoid that, to actually transcend sattva guna?
Well, I tell you, it's much, much easier to find someone to go out and distribute books than to find someone to train oxen. Working, distributing, Sankirtan is easy, honestly speaking. You're living in a city, you get to speak to people, you go buy yourself a drink. It's not hard. But living on a farm, training oxen, milking cows, controlling your mind is not easy. And those devotees that created that farm project in Hungary, they sacrificed a lot. They built the buildings, they live without electricity, they give up a lot of sense gratification. It's not that you don't make advancement just because you live out in the country not distributing books. You can make advancement anywhere. But you make advancement when you endeavor to fulfill Prabhupada's desire. That's where you really make advancement, whatever it takes. But the idea is that we do want to make life easier. But it's not like, if you're not out distributing books or going on Harinam, you don't do any austerities. There's plenty of austerities living on a farm. Like doing the deity worship. Like in Hungary, they have, I would say, the highest standard of deity worship in ISKCON. honestly speaking. There's, out of 120 inhabitants or 150 inhabitants on the farm, they have 30 full-time pujaris. And the standard is very, very high. So being a pujari is also an austerity. The standard of cleanliness, the punctuality, it requires austerity doing anything properly. But, living in the city is a real austerity, I agree. But it's not. Most devotees can't do it for long. I mean, Chandrasekhar Maharaj, I don't know how he lives in this place. It's hellish. You walk out in the street, you got the filthy pavements, bums lying around everywhere. It's horrible. But, if people can do it, if they're preaching, that's great. But Prabhupada didn't want kids to be born, and most people are going to get married anyway. You might think you won't, but, we'll come back in 10 years. Most people get married. And women join ISKCON. And Prabhupada said they should all be married. Because I don't... Anyway.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Time for prasadam. According to this, finish promptly by 9 a.m.
That's our,
Uh-oh. It's 9:05. I hope I don't get in trouble. Hare Krishna.